In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a self-binding baby blanket. So this is a receiving blanket made out of flannel, and the back piece will come around and border the top piece. So that's the border that you see here in this picture. It's called a self-binding receiving blanket because you don't have to cut the binding piece separately. The blanket is made as a square, and so you'll need to have your top piece 10 inches shorter than your bottom piece. And I would cut them at least 33 inches by 33 inches. That way you don't have a ton of waste when it comes to the fabric you have left over. If you want just a 3-inch strip of nothing, you can go ahead and just buy 1 yard of the top fabric and then 1 1/4 yard of the bottom fabric. But if you'd like to have something to do with the leftovers, I would get 1 1/4 yard of each type of fabric, and then you'll have enough from the top to make 1 burp rag, which will be 2 pieces of material that are cut 10 by 20 inches. If you buy 1 1/2 yards of each type of fabric, you'll have enough for 3 burp rags. You can make 2 from the top fabric and 1 from the bottom fabric. Or you can even cut those pieces into 10 by 10 inch squares and make washcloths too. It probably goes without saying, but if you want your finished product to lay flat and have nice sharp corners, you need to start out with cutting your pieces nice and straight as well. So make sure that the fabric, when you fold it, the fold line is straight on your ruler, and then as you cut on the sides, those will be straight as well. After you cut each piece, you want to mark the center. And you just find that by folding it in half and then making that mark on the back or the wrong side of the fabric. Then, with the top piece of fabric, you want to mark 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of each corner. This will be the point that you stop sewing. Then you will take both pieces of fabric and match them right sides together with the centers aligned. Pin your 2 fabrics together, starting from the middle and then going out to where you've marked the stop point, 1/4 inch away from the corner of the top piece. Then rotate your fabric and start the process again with the second side, beginning from the middle point out to the last 1/4 inch of the top piece. On the last side, you'll want to make sure you leave 6 inches open for turning. So make sure you mark that and don't sew through it. Otherwise, you'll end up having to rip out the seams like I always have to in order to be able to turn the blanket. Now with the front piece on top, you're going to sew from the middle out to the 1/4 inch away from the corner. So you're going to have an extra piece of flannel from the back sticking out. Once you get to that stop point, you'll want to make sure to back stitch so it's nice and secure, and then remove it from the sewing machine so that you can start the process over again on the next side, beginning from the middle of that side out to the 1/4 inch stop mark. Remember on that last side to leave 6 inches open for turning. Now you're going to repeat this process sewing with the back piece of flannel on top. This can be a little harder to see where to stop sewing because the markings are on the front piece of the flannel. So what I like to do is put a pin at the end of my stitch line from the front piece and then push it through to the back piece. That way I can see where to stop sewing. Once you finish sewing to your stop points, your corner should look something like this. Lay the blanket out flat. You'll notice that the back flannel will fold over the front flannel piece. Now it's the time to sew the corners. This is where the magic happens with those nice mitered corners on your binding. Fold your blanket so that the 2 side seams meet. Match the stop points that are 1/4 inch away from the corner. Then you'll mark a line from the fold at a 90-degree angle from the fold to the stop points. Sew on the line, making sure that you stop before you go into the seam allowance on the other side. Then you're going to trim 1/4 of an inch away from the sewing line. Do this on all 4 corners. This creates the mitered corners. Now we're at my favorite part, which is turning the quilt through the opening. I like to use a blunt pencil. I'll go through the opening and then push out the corners to make sure they're nice and sharp. Lay the blanket out flat and pin the binding down. You may need to press it with an iron. When you come to the side where you turn the quilt, fold that seam allowance under, and then pin it. Top stitch all around the blanket. I like to use a serpentine stitch. This will sew close the opening and finish the blanket. You may want to experiment with stitches on scrap material before using it on your blanket. I found that I had to increase the length of my stitch on the serpentine to get it to look right. After top stitching around the outside borders, I like to stitch an X down the center from corner to corner just to keep the fabrics together. To make a burp rag, just put the right sides together of your 10 by 20 inch pieces of fabric and then pin them. I also like to use a lid or a plate to round my corners. Again, make sure you leave a small opening on one of the sides so that you can turn the fabric right sides out. And then on those corners, you're going to want to snip into the seam line so that you can get them to lay a little more flat. After you've turned the burp rag, you're going to do the same thing that you did on the blanket and top stitch all around to make sure that you close that opening. This is what my finished burp rag looks like, just a long rectangle. If you're ambitious enough to make a washcloth, I usually don't top stitch using the serpentine stitch. I'll just top stitch with a straight stitch. There you have it. This is how you make a self-binding baby blanket with a matching burp rag. I hope you had fun.